Okay, so let me go through a couple things really quick for lesson 102. And then, like I put on the Google Classroom, we're going to shift gears just to kind of help everybody settle down. I know it's all of this uncertainty and all of this craziness. We still want to go forward learning math, but maybe take a little bit of the stress out of it. So I'm going to go through this lesson. I'm going to review yesterday's, what would have been a bell ringer. I'm going to review that. And I'm going to go through today's lesson very quickly. And then I'm going to show you the website that we'll be using and how you'll be getting your points. So it says the ratio of boys to girls at the assembly was 5-4. Now remember, we're writing the words of the things that we know. So we know boys, we know girls, and we know that we're going to have to know the total. Okay? So, and it tells us where to fill everything in. It says was 5-4. So we're going to write 5, 4, and then the total. So the total is when we add the 5 and the 4. So the 5 and the 4 makes 9. Now it says if there were 180 students in the assembly, so total inside the assembly, not the ratio, but the total in the assembly was 180. And now the question is, how many girls were there? So this is the piece that we're missing. Okay, so we can do a couple things. Remember, with ratios, fractions, proportions, we're making equal. So we can do cross multiplication. 4 times 180 divided by 9. We can say, oh, 9 times 2 is 18. So 9 times 20 would be 180. So 4 times 20 would be 80. And you can check that. You can do 4 times 180 divided by 9, and you will also get 80. And I will show that to you really quickly. So if you do 4 times 180 and divide that by 9, you can get the same answer. Okay? All right, so today's lesson we're going to talk about converting units of mass and weight. And also, a lot of times you just get questions, how much would this weigh? Okay, so 1 gram is really little, okay, tiny, teeny, tiny. And 1 kilogram is like about the size of your math book. So it's not gigantic. 1 kilogram is about the same as 2.2 pounds. And that's how we write pounds in math. So 1 gram is probably about the same as a paperclip. And we can talk about tiny, teeny, tiny things like a grain of salt. That would be something like a milligram. So even smaller than a gram. So if you took a gram and you divided it by 1,000, then you would have this grain of salt. Okay, but most of what we need to worry about is taking the things that we already know and finding ways that we would maybe rate them. So if I was going to weigh maybe a letter, I was going to send a letter in the mail, I would not need to, it's not going to be pounds, right? So we can maybe talk about that in grams, or a part of a pound, and we sometimes talk about that as ounces. And so 1 pound is 16 ounces. A lot of times you hear things like, or you see it maybe on a bridge, like the weight capacity is so many tons, okay? So when we're talking about really big things, you know, elephants and cars and things that weigh a lot, we might refer to them in tons, and a ton is 2,000 pounds. And that's good to know if you have to do a conversion. So you need to know how many ounces are in a pound. It's 16, and you probably need to know how many pounds are in a ton. Okay, so let's talk about things like questions like this. You get this not only in math, but sometimes in science. It will say 2 kilograms is how many grams? And so it's good to know that 1,000 grams equals 1 kilogram. So 2 kilograms, so if I had 1 kilogram, and this is given, the kilo means 1,000. So if I had 1 kilogram, I have to have 1,000 grams. That's what it's equal to. So if I had 2 kilograms, I would have to have 2,000 grams. Okay. But most of the time, why it's so important that we understand the basics, like 16 ounces in 1 pound, is so that we can use those things to do math like this. Okay, so the math like this is when we can add like terms almost. Right here we can add our ounces, and this is kind of like fractions, right? When we have our whole number and then our fraction, so a mixed number. And we can only add the fraction part with the other fraction part. So this is the same thing. So right here, I'm going to add my ounces. So I have 12 plus 6, and that right there will make 18 ounces. But remember, there's 16 ounces in 1 pound. So once I have 18 ounces, I also have an extra pound. So I need to carry that extra pound over to my ouncer. So my answer isn't just 9 pounds. Okay, so when we added our pounds, we had 9 pounds, and when we added our ounces, we had 18 ounces. So we have 9 pounds, 18 ounces, but that's not the way we record the answer. So the answer needs to be recorded with those extra ounces that made a pound as a pound. So we had the 9 pounds plus these extra ounces, so we have 10 pounds, and then there's only 2 ounces left over. Okay, and the same thing when we're subtracting. Now, subtracting is kind of like when we borrow. So we're going to borrow a whole pound, and remember, the pound is worth 16 ounces. So when I borrow 1 pound, I'm left with 8 pounds. And then I have to add those to my ounces. So I don't just have 10 ounces, I'm going to have 26 ounces because I've added that pound. So I borrowed that pound and I just put it in the ounces. Kind of like when we borrow from a whole number and we put it to the fraction. Okay, and now I can do this subtraction. So now I can do this subtraction. I'm going to subtract 7 pounds. Let's scoot that over so it looks better. And the 12 ounces. So I didn't change that. I didn't need to borrow from that. And now I can just do my subtraction like normal. Okay, I'll start with my ounces. So 26 minus 12. 6 minus 2 is 4. 2 minus 1 is 1. So that gives me 14 ounces. And then I have, oops. And then I have my 8 minus 7. So I only have 1 pound left from that. So I have 1 pound, 14 ounces. And I'm sorry, that's not lined up good. My computer's kind of funny. Okay, so lesson 102 comes from page 535. And that's today's lesson. And then I'm going to go through, I'm going to record today. So those of you that kind of want to work ahead, or if you have something that you want to do, those of you that want to continue working on the Saxon math lessons, feel free to go forward and work on those. But I'm going to give you another option today to work on a website where you can learn all of these same skills and practice, maybe a little bit less stressful. All right.